Meanwhile, in another corner of the Triverse, just through the portal, lies the Mirrorverse. A realm where every shadow tells a story. This one is about the Salvage Inc. crew. The void of space was never silent, at least not on the Requiem. The hum of the ship's systems played a continuous, low-key symphony, a backdrop to the crew's tense preparations. Vecca Rin, Nicordus Bortson, and Falere Synchrone stood on the bridge, Rin's eyes flickering between the shimmering portal ahead and the myriad of warning lights that danced across the dashboard like fireflies at dusk. "Status report!" Rin demanded, her voice steady but laced with the stress of impending decisions. The soft clinking of tools and the occasional heavy sigh from Nicordus filled the gap before the response came. "Portal's stable, but the portal drive, it's eating up power like there's no tomorrow, as if it's eating its own tail," reported Nicordus. He wiped grease-stained hands on his jumpsuit before tapping a gauge that stubbornly refused to show any signs of encouragement. "This isn't going well." From the corner, Falere watched the numbers on the screen with a furrowed brow. "We could shut down non-essential systems, buy ourselves some extra juice," he suggested, more to the screens than to anyone in particular. Rin considered this, her gaze fixed on the swirling colors of the portal. It looked like a painting, beautiful, but somehow threatening. "Do it. Let's keep our eyes on the prize." The click of switches and the hum of powering down equipment followed her command. The ship grew perceptibly quieter, the lights dimming. It was then that the computer decided to contribute more heart-stopping news. "Alert! Non-human life form detected on board." The voice of the computer was impersonal, the statement echoing ominously through the now quieter bridge. A tense silence fell over the crew. Rin's heart skipped a beat, but her face remained an unreadable mask. "Nicordus? Falere? Thoughts?" Falere shrugged, an edge of humor in his voice despite the situation. "Well, unless one of us has drastically changed overnight, I'd say we have an intruder." Nicordus snorted dismissively, already striding toward the terminal to activate the internal sensors. "Let's find our friend then," he declared, his tone edged with a mock sternness. "Can't have anyone or anything messing around uninvited." As he spoke, he began to adjust his weapon, mimicking the motion of loading it with an exaggerated flourish. From the corner, Falere couldn't suppress a chuckle. "It's an energy weapon, Nicordus. You don't need to load it." Catching the comment, Nicordus turned and shot Falere a look that was both annoyed and amused. "Oh, shut it." The screen flickered to life under Nicordus's skilled fingers, showing blips and blobs that represented different parts of the ship. There, in the engine room, a small, unexplained blip. "Got something," he murmured. Rin left the helm to join him. The image on the screen was grainy, but it was definitely not human, its edges too sharp, its shape too irregular, and its armor too shiny. "That's no friendly. That's a Mechron," she said quietly, a chill running down her spine. The realization settled in with a heavy weight. This entity, an actual Mechron, where did it come from? This was not just an inert piece of technology, but potentially something much more significant and dangerous. "We need to secure it," Rin decided, her voice carrying a new urgency. "Nicordus, gear up. You're with me. Falere, keep the ship stable and monitor that portal." "Don't have too much fun without me," Falere quipped, though his eyes remained glued to the portal's readings. With a nod to each other, Rin and Nicordus prepared to confront whatever awaited them in the engine room. The corridors of the Requiem felt colder, the usual clanks and drones of the ship more ominous as they moved. As they approached, the door to the engine room slid open with a hiss. The back of Rin's neck prickled, her hand instinctively going to the blaster at her side. Inside, the chaos of wires and metal did little to hide the silhouette of the Mechron, its form still. Rin raised her blaster, her other hand signaling Nicordus to circle around and under no circumstance fire his weapon without her consent. Nicordus rolled his eyes in frustration, clearly not thrilled with the restrictions. With a reluctant nod, he agreed, muttering under his breath about the limits now placed on his usual rapid-fire, no fucks given approach. "Fine. No surprise ammo dumps," he conceded grudgingly. The entity remained motionless, its silence a stark contrast to the subtle creaks of the ship around them. "Seems peaceful," Rin muttered, not taking her eyes off it. Or it's a really good actor, Nicordus countered, his voice tinged with suspicion. He cautiously extended a stick toward the object, adopting what he considered a poking a sleeping bear technique. Rin watched, her eyes widening in disbelief at his boldness. Seriously, Nicordus? Her expression seemed to shout, a mix of astonishment and irritation. Nicordus looked back at her with a nonchalant shrug, his face betraying a hint of mischief. What could possibly go wrong? He quipped, clearly underestimating the potential consequences of his actions. He continues. Looks like it's just in power-saving mode. Also, Rin, have you ever seen them this small? It's smaller than the size of a human? Nicordus, after a short moment, looking at it. He announced, Want me to see if I can wake it up? Rin nodded, keeping her blaster steady while moving backwards. It's a Mechron. Then sighs. Okay, you know what? Do it. Let's find out if our metal friend here can be an ally. If not, I will blast it. Telling him that all the while being on the other end of the room, far away from any immediate danger. As Nicordus poked the robot, its lights flickered on. It stirred, a low hum building from its core, a sound eerily the same as the portal's own sounds. Rin watched, fascinated and cautious, as the Mechron slowly came to life. Its first words, when they came, were garbled, but shortly after it awoke, they became clearer. Help. Me. The words were unexpected, imbued with an electronic quality but unmistakably pleading. Rin exchanged a look with Nicordus, both understanding the weight of the moment. All right, Rin said softly, stepping forward from cover. We'll help, but you need to help us too. Back on the bridge, Falir watched as the power levels began to stabilize. A small smirk was evident on his face. Looks like they fixed it, whatever they did, he murmured, eyes on the now stable portal that held the promise of unknown futures. In the dimly lit engine room of the Requiem, the newly awakened Mechron, its surface a smooth chrome metal, stood quietly. The initial plea for help had transformed the atmosphere from one of cautious hostility to tentative alliance. Rin, with her hand still on her blaster, watched the entity intently, trying to decipher its intentions. All right, let's keep this simple, Rin suggested, her tone a mix of command and diplomacy. You need help. We might need your help. First, tell us what you are doing here, on the ship. The entities struggled, as if it were processing her words, or perhaps struggling to form a response. After a moment, it spoke again, its voice clearer than before, but still tinged with static. Critically damaged during portal transfer. Need urgent repairs then. Find Prime. Rin thinking to herself, who or what the fuck is Prime? Nicordus, hovering over his portable diagnostic tool, nodded slightly. Looks like it came through the portal all right, when our portal drive had a hiccup. Might have been trying to escape, something. He glanced at Rin. Could be useful, knowing what it knows. Falir's voice crackled through their communicators, a hint of impatience threading his words. Everything okay down there? We're stable, but that doesn't mean I want to wait around all day. Rin rolled her eyes slightly, a brief smile breaking her stern facade. We're making friends, Falir. Or die trying to, she said softly, only to herself. Keep the ship steady a little longer, will you? Back in the engine room, Rin approached the entity, her movements measured. What do you need? Can you guide us on how to assist you? The Mechron responded with a panel on its chest sliding open to reveal intricate circuits and glowing cores. Assistance. Module repair. Energy stabilization needed. Portal travel, disrupted power, flow. Nicordus whistled softly, peering into the open panel. It's like looking under the hood of a car, only the car is from a few centuries in the future, or another galaxy. He fetched his toolkit, his curiosity piqued. Let's see what we can do. As Rin watched Nicordus work, she pondered the potential knowledge and technology this Mechron entity could share. It was a gamble, trusting something from a civilization they knew next to nothing about, except their ruthless destruction, but the potential rewards were too great to ignore. The repairs were meticulous and slow. Nicordus, with guidance from the entity, adjusted and repaired components that were beyond their understanding, yet strangely intuitive. The entity's body language, if it could be called that, suggested gratitude and relief as each repair was made. "You know, I never thought I'd be a mechanic for an alien robot," Nicordus joked as he tightened a component. Rin kept a watchful eye on the process, her mind racing through the possibilities. "Once you're operational, we need information. Anything about this portal, or your kind, maybe tech that could help us get home." The entity's lights stabilized, a sign that Nicordus's repairs were effective. Information available. Sharing now. It extended a limb, connecting with a port on the wall. Data streamed onto the main screen, diagrams and schematics flooding the display. "Looks like we hit the jackpot," Rin said, examining the data. With the entity now somewhat mobile and cooperative, they made their way back to the bridge. Rin felt a mix of apprehension and excitement. They were in uncharted territory, on a ship they knew next to nothing about, and a Mechron in tow, humanity's #1 enemy. Although this one looked a lot more autonomous than the ones that brought destruction to our planet. As they entered the bridge, Falir turned from his console, eyebrows raised in surprise. "Looks like you made more than friends. You brought back a walking encyclopedia." The entity moved to the central console, interfacing directly with the ship's systems. Data flowed seamlessly now, and Rin could see Falir's demeanor change from skepticism to intrigue as he watched the incoming information. "Okay, let's see if we can use all this data to our advantage," Falir mused. Rin nodded, her gaze fixed on the star map displayed on the screen. "Set course for the portal's horizon," she instructed. The journey ahead was fraught with danger, but the alliance with the Mechron entity offered a glimmer of hope, a chance not only for survival, but for understanding a fraction more of the vast universe they occupied. The Requiem trembled, a soft shudder that ran through its metal bones as it approached the swirling vortex of the portal. Rin stood firm, her eyes locked on the view screen where the portal's vibrant colors danced like wild flames against the backdrop of deep space. "All right, everyone, this is it. Hold on to whatever you can." Falir, managing the navigation console, adjusted the trajectory with meticulous care. "If this data is even half as accurate as it looks, we should be golden." Should being the keyword here. Nicordus, who had taken up a position beside the Mechron entity, watched the data stream in real time. "You know, for a Mechron, you're pretty handy," he muttered to the entity, but the entity didn't respond. The Mechron interfaced seamlessly with the ship's systems, upgrading their operations. "Systems integration at 95%, it declared, its voice devoid of the earlier static. "Portal passage will commence in 3, 2, 1. As the ship entered the portal, reality seemed to warp around them. The bridge was bathed in a surreal glow, and the crew felt a momentary weightlessness, a sensation that made Rin's stomach churn. Outside, the stars disappeared, and the fabric of space itself seemed to fold, a visual spectacle that defied understanding. "Everyone still with me?" Rin called out, gripping the edge of her console as gravity reasserted itself abruptly. "Just about," Falir responded, his voice tinged with awe. "That was smoother than I expected, but we're not out of the woods yet." "No time for tea," Rin quipped back, a smile flickering momentarily as she focused on their path. "Let's keep our eyes on the here and now. Falir, what's our exit vector look like?" Falir, engrossed in his readings, adjusted a few settings before replying. "Coming up on the exit now. Brace for re-entry into normal space. It's going to get bumpy." The transition out of the portal was indeed more violent than their entry. The ship bucked as if trying to throw off an unwelcome rider, and the crew was pressed hard against their restraints. Lights flickered overhead, and somewhere in the back a panel clattered to the floor while sparks flew everywhere. "We made it!" Falir exclaimed as the chaos settled and the view screen showed a star field that was unfamiliar yet stable. "I'm not seeing any black holes, rogue comets, or dinosaur planets. I'd call that a win." Nicordus released a sigh. "And here I was, halfway hoping for a T-Rex pet." The Mechron seemed to process their banter, its menacing lights dimming and then brightening as if in understanding. Rin allowed herself a moment of relief before turning to the task at hand. "We need to figure out where we are. and whether it's anywhere near where we want to be. Falaire, start scanning for any recognizable star formations. Nicordus, keep an eye on the ship's systems. Make sure our ride through the portal didn't leave us with any nasty surprises. As Falaire set to work, his fingers moving deftly over the controls, Rin walked over to the Mechron. You did good, she told it sincerely. Thanks to you, we might just get home. With the portal closing behind them, they turned their eyes toward the starlit expanse before them. The vastness of space, which had always seemed so indifferent and unforgiving, now loomed as an even greater enigma before the crew of the Requiem. Rin stood by the observation deck, her eyes scanning the infinite array of stars displayed before her. Any luck with those stars, Falaire? Rin called over her shoulder, her voice echoing slightly in the quiet of the command deck. Falaire, absorbed in his work at the navigation console, responded without looking up. It's like trying to find a specific grain of sand on a cosmic beach. None of these formations are familiar. We might as well be in a completely different galaxy. The Mechron spoke. Universe? Not real, Mirrorverse. Rin looking at the robot. Not real? The what now? But it didn't respond to her question. Nicordus, who was checking the ship's external sensors, added, or maybe a different time. Who knows what side effects jumping a starship through a portal might include? Rin turned to face them, her expression serious. Time travel theories aside, we need to establish our position and figure out a plan. We're running low on the supplies we didn't have to begin with. We need to find a habitable planet or a friendly outpost. Fast. The Mechron, which had been interfacing with the ship's systems, suddenly spoke up again. Data analysis suggests nearest habitable system approximately 3 light-years from current coordinates. Proposing course adjustment. Try and drive use suggested for jump. Falaire, checking the controls, responds, Yeah, the ship seems to have a try and drive all right. 3 light-years, huh? Rin mused, considering their options. Looks like our best shot. Falaire, plot the course and use this drive instead of the portal drive. Falaire's responded, setting new trajectory. There, course laid in. It's a good thing our mysterious friend here has a knack for finding needles in haystacks. Nicordus chuckled. As the Requiem set course for the system, the crew busied themselves with various tasks. Nicordus and Rin went down to the engine room to assess the damage of their main systems, while Falaire and the Mechron entity remained on the bridge to monitor their progress and keep an eye on external conditions. The engine room of the Requiem was a maze of pipes, while wires were strewn everywhere, like a battle had been fought here and something had been connected to the wires, forcefully getting decoupled by gunfire. Nicordus led the way, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. See here, he said, pointing to a series of gauges. These conduits all took some pretty serious weapon damage. Some were even severed. It's a miracle they still work. If I reroute the flow through this secondary conduit, it will be safer. Rin watched as Nicordus worked, his hands sure and swift. Do what you can. Every little bit helps. Above them, Falaire watched the star map, tracking their progress toward salvation. The Mechron entity updated him periodically with system updates. Despite the dire circumstances, Falaire found himself oddly reassured by the presence of their alien ally. Not bad to have a Mechron ally. The Mechron spoke. Probability of reaching destination, 98%. 98%, Falaire repeated, a wry smile on his face. I've taken worse odds at the card tables. Back in the engine room, Rin and Nicordus wrapped up their repairs. As they made their way back to the bridge, Rin couldn't help but feel a surge of pride in her crew. They were far from home, possibly lost in an unknown part of the universe, yet they were handling it with a grit and determination that was the hallmark of spacefarers. Ready to see if your tweaks paid off? Rin asked, clapping Nicordus on the shoulder. As ready as we'll ever be, Nicordus replied, taking his station. Falaire nodded, his eyes fixed on the forward screen. Let's find out what's waiting for us at the end of this jump. The starlight was a mere streak across the vast canvas of the universe as the Requiem hurtled toward the habitable system identified by the Mechron with its Trion drive, a sort of hybrid FTL drive that doesn't use a portal to get around normal space. Rin stood by the main console, her eyes scanning the readouts, constantly assessing the time estimated to reach the new system. Falere, give me an update on our ETA. Falere toggled through the screens with practiced ease. We're looking at approximately 6 hours to arrival at optimal speed. This drive is fast as fuck. Nicordus, tinkering with a panel beneath the console, grunted in agreement. We might want to prepare for a manual shutdown of the engines when we enter the system. Will give us a little bit more cover. Just in case. The Mechron entity, its interface cables connected to the navigation system, pulsed with a steady red light. Assistance is possible. I can optimize the ship's power flow to reduce our signature by an additional 3.7%. Rin nodded, appreciative of the unexpected boon. Do it. Every little bit helps, and right now, I'd welcome a miracle in any form it chooses to appear. As the entity worked, its body humming softly, Falere watched with a mix of fascination and wariness. You know, I never thought I'd trust a Mechron. Nicordus chuckled, his head still inside the panel. There's a first time for everything. Besides, it hasn't steered us wrong yet. Falere, ever the cynic. The key word here is yet. I am keeping my blaster under my pillow, just in case. Rin paced slowly behind them, her thoughts racing as fast as her steps. The promise of reaching a habitable planet was more than just a simple mission objective. It was a beacon of hope for the entire human race. Not only did they acquire a state-of-the-art advanced starship, finding another Earth-like planet would mean it could be used to relocate towards. She turned to Falere and Nicordus, her voice firm yet imbued with a rare softness. Once we land, keep your guard up. We don't know what we'll find, and while our friend here has been helpful, we're still in uncharted territory. Falere nodded, his gaze settling on the forward viewport where the distant stars shone brightly against the void. I've seen enough sci-fi to know that paradise planets aren't always what they seem. Nicordus emerged from the panel, wiping his hands on a rag. Let's just hope it's not one of those eat the humans kind of places, he said, half joking, half serious. The ship continued on its path, now slightly quieter with the Mechron adjustments taking effect. The red light of its body cast ghostly shadows across the deck, creating an eerie, otherworldly glow. Rin returned to the viewport, her eyes reflecting the starlight. We need a plan for when we arrive. Nicordus, ensure all systems are green. Falere, find out if this ship can enter an atmosphere and stay in the air. I don't want to find out if flies like a brick. We need to be ready to move quickly, whether it's to explore or to make a quick getaway. Falere turned back to his console. Let me send in some drones, see what we are working with, then maybe start running simulations to find the best approach vector. The Mechron suddenly pulsed a brighter shade of red, then spoke out, preparing for planetary analysis. Nicordus looked over at the entity with a newfound respect. You might just be the MVP of this trip, you know that? He continued. By the way, what should we call you? The entity's lights flickered, as if thinking about a name, but not yet responding. Rin watched the interaction, a slight smile breaking through her usual stoic demeanor. Keep it up, and we might just consider making you a permanent member of the crew. As the Requiem approached the planet, the atmosphere among the crew was thick with a mix of excitement and nervousness. They busied themselves with final checks and preparations, each member keenly aware of the historic nature of their mission. They were potentially the first humans to explore this distant system, setting foot on a pristine alien world in a starship that came from the future, accompanied by an improbable ally. In the camaraderie of their bustling preparations, Nicordus joked, lightening the mood. If this were an RPG, we'd definitely have rolled a critical 20 for everything to line up this perfectly. The comment drew a round of chuckles, a moment of levity, as they faced the unknown together. The possibility of finding a new Earth-like planet was tantalizing, but the unknowns loomed large. As they prepared to face whatever awaited them on this new world, the new crew of the Requiem knew that the next few hours could change everything. Then the Mechron entity broke the silence, its voice resonating with a metallic clarity. My designation is Monger. Falere, eyebrows raised, couldn't help but respond quickly. That's too much of a coincidence to not be Warmonger. Rin turned to glance at Nicordus, catching the wry shrug he offered her, a look that said, Seems like a perfect fit for our little group, doesn't it? Little did they know just how accurate that observation would turn out to be. But that Triverse story will have to be told another day. If you've stuck with me up to this point, a heartfelt thank you. I'd also like to take a moment to remind you that my entire channel is dedicated to the Triverse and its enthralling Mechron mechanoid saga. While many of the stories stand alone, allowing you to dive in at any point, crafting these narratives takes about 4 or 5 days each, so your patience is greatly appreciated. If you find yourself enjoying what you see, consider exploring more of my videos. Each one, in its own unique way, weaves together more of the overarching story I'm telling.